Hello everyone, I am Junaid Bahadur Khan and I have Asjad Bukhari with me. Ladies and gentlemen, this program is a joint production of Maple TV and Proxy Guftagu. Ladies and gentlemen, in every nation you need a leader. In every economy, in every country, in every province, in every community, leaders are those people who can drive our communities, our nation in right direction. They can drive entire economy toward right direction as well. In these days, in Alberta, Liberals are trying to find their new leader. There are two people in this race, David Khan and Kerry Cundal. We already talked to David Khan yesterday, and today we're going to talk to Kerry, and we're going to try to know what is her plans to build Alberta and try to drag Alberta back to its economy.
Welcome to the show, Kerry.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
You're most welcome. For our viewers and for Liberal voters, who is Kerry?
Oh, who's Kerry? Well, I've grown up in the north, up in Peace Country, and Fort St. John, and then Grand Prairie. I've been in Calgary now for about 15 years. But I've lived across the province. I've been everywhere from Red Deer to Edmonton to Sylvan Lake. Both of my children were born in St. Albert. And so I've lived here obviously for a long time, connections throughout the province. I would describe my background as relatively humble. My mom is an LPN and my father is a gas fitter. And so we, especially up north in natural gas country, we lived through the ups and downs of the boom and bust economy here in Alberta. We actually lived for 3 years in a garage. Both of my parents were unable to get work for a period of time. And then I had the good fortune of being able to go to Grand Prairie Regional College, then the U of A. I did 2 degrees at the University of Alberta, and then 2 degrees at the University of Calgary. So I was a teacher first, and then I became a lawyer, an immigration lawyer, and also worked as a decision maker for the Immigration Refugee Board. And then I've worked the last year and a half for Minister McCallum and Minister Hussain, who are both ministers, federal ministers of immigration. So that's sort of in a nutshell my background.
So always I heard one thing on the street from the politicians: it is very hard to be a Liberal in Alberta. So you not only want Liberal, but you want leader of the Liberal. Why?
Yes. So I actually think there are some misconceptions about what liberalism is and what the Liberal Party stands for. The Alberta Liberal Party has excellent policies, excellent people, and an excellent platform on which to run. So the unfortunate part is some of the misconception. So, for example, my grandparents' farm is up in Hythe, north of Grand Prairie, and my uncle is still farming up there. And he said to me, well, Kerry, aren't the Liberals the tax and spend and make the kids pay for the mortgage? That's a misconception. As Liberals, we support industry, we support our farmers, we support small businesses, and I think that's the message that we have to send to our fellow Albertans so that they know that we actually are not anti-business or just tax and spend people. So I think we have to do a better job of communicating to our fellow Albertans what it is that we stand for.
And Kerry, you only run once in real elections, if I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. If I compare you with David, he has more experience. He's run 2 times in election process, and he is in politics from his university life. Mm-hmm. And he have very good profile with politics and as well as Liberal. He is long time in main Liberal politics. He knows better Liberal Party than you. So how are you going to cope up this entire experience which you do not have with him?
Yeah, so, I don't know that that's completely correct. I mean, he has been on the board. He's run twice provincially. I've run once federally. I say, I might be relatively new to politics, but I'm not new to life. David and I are the same age. I have supported other Liberals, Barry Robinson up in Grand Prairie. And if you want to know if it's tough, you think, to run in Calgary on a Liberal campaign, try running one in Grand Prairie. I've also supported David in the past. I did some door knocking for him when he ran provincially. I've also helped out on other campaigns and door knocked federally for other Liberals. And I've also studied political science. So my first degree was in political science. And so I actually have a background and understanding of liberalism philosophy, and that's what attracted me to the Liberal Party, both federally and now provincially.
Because you are, I think, in party not from a long time, because you were in PC Conservative Party before that, and even you were supporting Dr. Richard when he was running for nomination. So you're new in liberalism as well. So,
yeah, not new in liberalism. I actually think many Albertans are small L liberalism. So if you actually talk about the principles of liberalism and you have those one-on-one, so get the partisan us versus them kind of politics aside. If you have a coffee with your fellow Albertan and you talk about the principles of liberalism, and I'm talking about individually protected, constitutionally protected individual rights and freedoms, the rule of law, these are all things that Albertans are all small L liberals. if you can have those one-on-one conversations. So yes, I have supported. I believe there are good people everywhere. There are good people with the NDP party. There are good people with the PC. There are good Liberals. There are many Albertans, the majority of Albertans, who are not members of any political party and are good people. And if you have the conversation with them, they will agree with the main principles and tenets of liberalism.
One thing, Unite the Right is in progress. We don't know what will happen, but it is in progress. So, have some plan to unite the center? Or unite the left, or whatever you want to say about the Liberals?
Yeah. So as I said before, Liberals have some incredible policy, some incredible people, incredible passion and vision for Alberta. And so I think as Liberals, we should not be shy to invite new people in. Our numbers have been diminishing. So we need to do the outreach to the people who are either not members of any political party or people who are leaving the Progressive Conservative Party. There are many Progressive Conservatives who do not support Jason Kenney, who are leaving that party, and we should be ready with open arms. If they agree with the principles and policies, then we should be inviting them in and working with them.
So it means your plan, for example, if there is some plan to unite the center or the left, so you will be focusing on individuals instead of parties.
Yes, and that's, it's an open invitation, and that's part of the reason why I've spent the last 10 days going across the province. So we've been everywhere from Lethbridge all the way up to Fort McMurray. We were in Grand Prairie. We had over 60 people in Grand Prairie come to a Liberal event. And also we were in Slave Lake, Lloydminster, Medicine Hat, Brooks. We need to show our fellow Albertans that we care, that it's not just about Calgary, not just about Edmonton, that we are inclusive, that we are inviting, and we are bringing people from all over the province in.
It seems like that you guys are a little confused between liberalism and left and center left or center far left. Yeah. Exactly what is your ideology? Are you center left or you're left or you're...
Yeah, it's interesting that we frame it this way in North America. I was talking to a friend of mine who's Rwandan ancestry, and he said to me, what is this with this left versus right kind of phenomenon in Alberta politics or Canadian or even North American politics? Really, is the question not what is right and what is wrong, rather than what is right and what is left? I think there is some confusion in politics about right, center, left. I think we have to get back to the basics. What are the policies? What are the principles? What do we stand for? Rather than trying to frame it in an us versus them or just a left versus right. And that's why, I've been criticized for the word centrist. But really what we're trying to do is create a big tent where many Albertans can join us, but with some hard walls. And when I say hard walls, it means keeping out the extremists. So people who are either, anti-immigration or anti-diversity, those are not the folks who are going to be part of the party, because we are inclusive and we support diversity and we support equality. So there are some issues that we're not willing to negotiate on. Likewise, when it comes to universal health care, that is not something we're willing to give up. So there are certain hills that you need to fight for, certain battles worth fighting, and you need to draw those lines in the sand and still be a big tent and very inclusive of many people coming from all different backgrounds.
And Gary, let me take you back to that experience area. I was searching online, and on David website we have policy breakdown of everything. We can, if I'm in his website, I can see his policy on oil and gas, his policy on healthcare, education, everything. But on your website, it's only few things we can see. You're not very clear about policies when we are looking into it. So why you are not putting stuff online?
So we have to be very careful, because there's a lot of work that's been done by the Alberta Liberal Party on past policy conventions. And so I support the Alberta Liberal Party policy. That's one of the reasons I signed up. So all of that information is on the Alberta Liberal website. Many of David's policies I also support. David and I don't have a big difference on policy. We've had 2 debates now, and we agreed on just about everything. So the policy is the same. That's not...
So exactly same?
Almost,
or there are some differences?
Well, not very many. But we can talk about what the perceived differences are.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
Because we do not have your policy actually, because we have 15 pages of his policy which we can see.
Yeah, I've seen
but
his too.
We do not have your policy, so we cannot even know what is your policy.
Yeah.
So we cannot even compare.
So first of all, it's not my policy, it's not David's policy. This was something that came up in the last Edmonton debate. David said, my policy, my policy. I said, this is not a one-man show. One person
It means he endorsed that policy.
Yeah, one person doesn't come up and say, guess what, everybody? We're going to do it my way. Here's my policy. This is how we're doing it. I don't think that's the right approach. So yes, I agree with many of his ideas. I agree with many of the policies that have already been put forward by the Alberta Liberal Party. We are going to have a policy convention in the fall. We have to work with everybody. This has to be a community of leaders that come together and build the platform for the next election. It cannot be top down. That is a big mistake.
So let's say political analysts are saying the way NDP government is working in Alberta, they are centrist. So they consider not socialist or not in the left side. They never come up with very big social program, very typical lefty. So how you compete with them? You are also centrist. I mean the liberals.
So I actually think there are some key differences between the NDP and the Liberals. And again, when we agree, we should agree. And Dr. David Swan has done a very good job in the legislature. When he agrees with the policy of the NDP, he supports them. And when he disagrees, he tells them why. So I don't think we disagree to be disagreeable, but let me give some examples of where we can distinguish ourselves from Liberals to the NDP. Carbon tax is one of them.
Okay.
So you look at the carbon tax, over 60% of Albertans do not support the way the NDP are implementing the carbon tax.
So in principle you are not against, but
no,
In practicality might be
the
different.
way the implementation.
Implementation,
So exactly.
okay.
So for example, the rebates, it's becoming a political tool the way they're doing the carbon tax. So even folks who are making $90,000 a year are receiving a rebate. Even people who are not living in Alberta are receiving a rebate. So Dr. Swan has, in my view, made a fair criticism with respect to how do we know that we're actually reducing greenhouse gas
how
emissions?
90,000? I mean, we never received any rebate. So I have to look my T4 again.
Okay.
So I'm
Yeah, no,
Let's-
and that's actually one of the criticisms. Is it's not transparent, it's not clear why some are receiving rebates, others are not, and who and why, and that's part of the criticism, is it needs to be more transparent.
Let's talk about this economy, because economy is the most important thing in your campaign as a leader. So give me 5 points. I asked the same question with David as well. Give me 5 points how you gonna fix economy.
Yeah, so fix the economy. Yeah, it's always the economy and always jobs. That's for sure. So we actually have to look at both revenue and spending. We can't just do one or the other. So let's start with the biggest ticket item, healthcare. We know that that's almost 50% of our provincial budget. And so we have to look at ways to be more effective and cost saving. So some of the examples that I've heard from frontline healthcare workers are the wastage on diagnostics, some of the procurement processes, some of the contracts where we're spending 2 to 3 times on equipment where we should be spending less, get some better contracts in place. Some of the management on OT, on overtime with nursing staff, we could be saving money.
But these are very same option which NDP is using at this moment.
Well,
What you
no.
gonna make a different?
Yeah, so actually, no, the NDP are not. They actually are not looking inward. That's why we have deficit spending of $10 billion a year. We actually have to look at where we're going to save money. And my understanding from folks who are experts in healthcare and on the front lines, the NDP are not making those hard choices in terms of where the savings are, especially on the diagnostics, on the healthcare delivery. So I actually think as Liberals, we could do a better job on healthcare and saving money and still being compassionate. One of the other things that I think Dr. Swan has been very effective on in terms of fair criticism to the NDP is the investment in mental health services. We know that upfront investment in mental health treatment actually saves us money down the road, both in healthcare and also in the criminal justice system, and also with respect to homelessness. So I actually think we could also do a better job at the front end too on healthcare.
Let me be specific. In David's proposal, he said that small businesses need to be boosted up, and big businesses they need to pay more taxes. What's your intake in this particular area?
Yeah, that's the feedback I've been getting too. Small businesses are going out of business. They're not able to stay afloat. And what happens when they go out of business? We lose jobs. So they need some tax relief. That's the reality. We have to make sure that Alberta is the best place to do business in North America. And there's a couple of ways we can do that. Yes, we have to give them some tax relief, and we also have to cut some of the red tape. So one of the things I heard even today talking to entrepreneurs and folks in the energy industry on startups is it takes way too long and way too much red tape to get started as a startup in energy, in business here in Alberta. So we could do better on that too. So yeah, I agree with David. I think that that's something that he and I are both aligned on. I think that Liberals can differentiate ourselves from the NDP because we can do a better job in supporting small businesses.
But Kerry, trickle-down effect always go with the big businesses. If we do not have a lot of big businesses in Alberta, we cannot support our small businesses. How are you going to deal with this entire trickle-down effect of businesses?
Yeah, I hesitate to use the word trickle-down. That reminds me of Reaganomics and Margaret Thatcher. And I think that's sometimes a flawed assumption that we end up getting some kind of economic benefit when the wealthiest and the biggest companies do well. It doesn't necessarily trickle down. So I actually think that really where the need is with the small businesses, not the large businesses. They actually are still doing relatively well. It's the small businesses that are going out of business and not the large businesses.
One thing, are you worried about Alberta deficit and how you're going to fix?
Yeah, so no, I am worried. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm stepping up too. I have 2 children. My son is 21, my daughter is 19. And although we need to make significant efforts on education, on the environment, it's not that we're not willing to spend the money and absorb some of that deficit. We know the difference between good debt and bad debt. So I'm not opposed to some deficit spending.
Okay.
But what's going on right now is there's no end in sight. And that's problematic. I am for, over a period of time, balancing the budget. And I think we can do that when we look both on the revenue side and on the spending side. So how do we do that? We're going to have to look at options. We're going to have to look at tax policy that is far more innovative and comprehensive. So we can look at things like consumption tax. We can explore, even a sugar tax, for example, the way we tax cigarettes and alcohol. We can look at that. But at the end of the day, we also have to show Albertans how that impacts their bottom line. So, for example, their personal income taxes and this small business tax that people pay too. So I think if we frame things and show people how they might save on their personal income tax, they would be more likely to accept a new consumption tax.
But another thing is the farm workers' safety. So what is your stand on that? Yeah,
so I'm in support of Bill 6. In fact, I worked with Alberta Civil Liberties with Linda McKay-Panos and Yessie out of Edmonton, advocating for farm workers, particularly those who had precarious immigration status, so those who came through the temporary foreign worker program, those who came through the seasonal agricultural worker program. So I've actually published both nationally and internationally on this subject and was an advocate for that. Now, that being said, the NDP, by their own admission, and small family farmers have said that the consultation process could have been better. And they actually subsequently made amendments to Bill 6 to recognize that when you have, family volunteers or a neighbor volunteering, that there would be exemptions from some of the OHS, the Occupational Health and Safety Standards, and the WCB the laws that are part of this.
So Kerry will become a leader of Alberta, Alberta Liberals, and potential premier. So how we can see the difference in healthcare at this time and during your time? So are you satisfied with that, or you will kill Tommy Douglas tradition?
No. So we have to start from basic principles. So we start understanding that healthcare is a human right. We start with universal healthcare. That's the starting place.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so that's that. Let's make that very clear.
We start
with that. That has to be the foundation.
Okay.
Now we are facing serious challenges in healthcare. So wait times are astronomical. We are also seeing healthcare costs rise. They're not going down, and we have to look at how we're going to be more cost effective, more effective in the delivery of healthcare.
So governance is the big issue.
It is. That is absolutely the number one thing that we have to look at is how we are delivering healthcare and making sure that everyone from the poorest to the richest in Alberta have access to healthcare.
So it means the universal healthcare is the way.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and I think we should be very cognizant and honest.
It's the same thing that NDP is doing. So what is the difference you want to do with that healthcare thing?
Well, I think the NDP have not taken a critical hard look at where some of the ineffective and inefficiencies are in the way the government is providing public health care. And so the examples that I gave earlier, I'll reiterate, and that is in terms of diagnostics. There's a lot of duplication of tests. The NDP have not addressed that, and I'm talking to frontline healthcare workers that are telling me this. This is millions of dollars that would be savings for Albertans. So also there, we can look at the management of nurses and some of the savings we could have on overtime if that was staffed more appropriately, and the resources. We could also see reduction in wait times if we're resourced effectively too.
Another most important thing in Alberta, oil and gas. What is your practical proposal for oil and gas industry?
Yeah, so I think, just as we said during the federal campaign, this idea that there's an either or some kind of a light switch where we can just turn it off is nonsense. We have to look at the and solution. So we have to look at how we're going to transition to clean energy, to renewables, and also support our oil and gas industry, because people are not going to go off the grid overnight. That's not going to happen. So how do we do both? When I'm listening to people in the energy sector, we are at capacity. We don't have the storage. We don't have the transportation available. We know that rail is far more dangerous. We need pipelines. So the Alberta Liberal Party is very clear in supporting pipelines. We're going to have to work with our neighbours in BC. There's some interesting developments there, of course, with 3 Green Party seats.
Yeah.
And also with the BC Liberals maybe being one seat shy of a majority. There's the Courtney Comox riding that constituency that that might turn Liberal. We'll see. And then, of course, the NDP as well.
There's another big problem with over oil and gas. Over oil and gas, dirty oil as a branded name, and then environmental factor. How are we going to deal with this entire thing? Because over gas pipeline, another big problem, which is upstreaming emissions. How are we going to control this entire debate with them?
Yeah, so I actually think we have to have a far more comprehensive look at this. I think natural gas is a transitional fuel. I think there's lots of opportunity. It burns cleaner. Also refining. This has been a conundrum in Canada, and in particular in Alberta, where, we have raw natural resources. We send it to the United States to be refined and then buy it back. So, it's baffling on so many levels where in Canada we're not refining products, and that includes oil and gas, and I think we can do a better job. The NDP, to some extent, support this as well. And I think as Alberta Liberals, we should also be supporting more refinement right here.
On another area, I'm glad you said that healthcare is human rights. Education is also the same, I think. When I moved in Alberta, that was Rob Klein's time. And I work in the beginning in the school board, and my profession is librarian. And I was really surprised that the libraries here were worse condition in school board compared to third world countries. And on that time I moved from Singapore, and there was no comparison at all. So the cost of education is growing. So how, especially not only I'm talking about post-secondary education as well. So do you have some plan?
Yeah, so I'm very passionate about education, both personally and professionally. I started off my career as a teacher and have seen firsthand. I worked at the Peavine Métis settlement up north, also in Grand Prairie and in Red Deer. Education is an investment, not only in our children, but also in our society and our citizenry. So it is a very worthwhile, a very, very important investment that we need to make. That we all benefit from an educated society. So we have to support, so whether it's K to 12, we have to support education. We also have to support subsidized post-secondary education. We have to make sure that it's affordable for our youth, because their future and our future depends on that. We also have to look at some relief on student loans for them. And we also are looking at small business grants or entrepreneurial grants to students. Because sometimes students make the best, they start up the best businesses. And so if we can support them and they're creating jobs and they have some income while they're studying, that's a win-win. It has to be a balance. I think most Albertans understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Good debt is you actually get a return on your investment. So educated citizens, for example, is a return. Tangible benefits like healthcare is a return. But we can't spend with no end in sight. So on the governance side, we can look for greater effectiveness and efficiencies to save some money. On the revenue side, we can look at things that are part of a greater tax policy, like a consumption tax. And we're going to have to address both sides of that equation. So that's how I think you find the balance. We can look at balancing the budget, not overnight, but likely within sort of a 4 to 6 or 8 year period. So probably over 2 terms, we could balance the budget.
Okay.
Disaster management is another big issue. NDP deal with the Fort McMurray problem very well. How are you going to make it better for future?
Thank you. So I was just up in Fort McMurray and ran into Premier Notley. And I say we give credit where credit is due. In fact, folks from all different backgrounds, whether Conservative or NDP or Liberals, have all said the same thing. Our first responders and Premier Notley, the way that was handled was incredible. And in fact, really, let's give some credit to the citizens of Fort McMurray. The way they stepped up and helped each other And then when we saw the outpouring of support across the province and even across the country and even the world to some extent, it was inspiring and it was heartwarming. So when we were up there, you know, it was very inspiring to hear people's stories and also heartbreaking too. There are some folks who are still struggling and many people who have not returned. They have about 10-15% population loss and people that are just not coming back to Fort McMurray. So I say kudos. I say we give credit where credit is due. One of the reasons I've stepped up to do this and is what we see happening in Alberta politics right now is this sort of us versus them. This sort of political cheap shots of saying, well, these, you know, we don't like the NDP because of this. We see Kenny's, you know, they're socialists, we can't support them. And I've seen also some very personal attacks against Jason Kenney as well, maybe about his weight or his sexual orientation or all these other things. That is not the way to do politics. Those are cheap shots. Albertans are not interested in that. Albertans are interested in positive politics, how we're going to bring bridges, how we're going to bring Albertans together and work together because we're facing big challenges. And the only way we're going to actually have some progress and come to some practical solutions is if we start working together and build those bridges and work toward positive politics for the next election.
We are going into the end. So can you explain, can you tell our viewers about the schedule of the election and how they can vote?
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you again for having me. We are so excited. I am so thankful that my friend David stepped up to run. You know, if David had not stepped up to run or I had not stepped up to run, we would not have a race. It's time we build each other up, not tear each other down. As Liberals, we have to work together and build for the future, not tear each other apart. So tomorrow is the deadline. It's the deadline for memberships.
15th.
May 15th. Tomorrow's the deadline. And 11:59 p.m. I think is the cutoff. And then there's online voting, which is May 27th to June 3rd. So I really encourage everyone, whether they're supporting David or our team, get out there, get your vote or get your membership before tomorrow. Make sure you get your vote out. And we really look forward to working with everybody and building.
So do you have website? People will go and know more about Kerry Cundal?
Yes, sure. So the website is kerrycundal.com.
Not just detailed one.
Yeah, KerryCundal.com. Also, my personal cell is 403-919-1267. So people can contact me directly. I'm always available and willing to go for coffees, listening to people, hearing what their needs are, hearing what their policy ideas are, because we will have to build this together to make sure we have the best platform for 2019.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kerry.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you for
We
having
appreciate
me.
your time.
Yeah, very much appreciated. Thank you.